Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are. And welcome to this introductory webinar for the EMERITUS Digital Strategies for Business program. It's clear to anyone in business today that digital and digital transformation are central to all business strategy. Without a digital plan, it's unlikely your business will be ready for the next 12 months and indeed the following years. Digital is fundamental, whatever sector you're in and whatever your role is in the business. You'll be impacted directly or indirectly by digital. So in this webinar, we're going to introduce the core components of this best-selling program. And I'd like to start by just giving you a few guidelines about how we're going to run the webinar itself. We use the Zoom platform. If you're not familiar with this, I hope you find this a good experience. I will be doing most of the talking, so we ask you please to mute your mic. If you wish to speak later on when we have a Q&A, please unmute your mic. And we have a chat function which will allow you to ask any questions. I will answer them myself at the end of the session, or the support team will be looking at the chat feature and will be responding directly if the questions relate to an administrative aspect of the program. We always encourage participants to ask questions and to make these webinars as interactive as possible. In many ways, you should see this webinar as an example of the webinars that you will be doing when you join this program. This looks like a long agenda, but actually we're going to cover each of these aspects at a high level. So there's not too much detail here, but more, our job today is to give you a feel for the program and what you can expect by enrolling on it. We do a quick introduction on Emeritus and a bit of background on the Emeritus business and the Emeritus team. We look then at our view on the ultimate learning experience online, and we'll talk through the learning methodology and how over a number of years now we've established this as a successful formula for the many thousands of people who go through our programs each year. We look at previous participants and who they are, and we look also, of course, at the current intake and a bit about you guys and where you're coming from. I introduce our faculty, Professor David Rogers, who has written the playbook, who is the lead professor on a number of the courses that I am lucky enough to lead, including this one. We do an overview of the program itself and what you can expect. We look at each of the modules and webinars at a high level, just to give you a sense of the structure and how they all fit together. We have a quick look at the Canvas learning platform, which is the go-to online destination where we host our webinars and where we run a number of the interactive forums where you'll be connecting with each other and with the Emeritus team. And we end with a session on the logistics, the fees, the application process, and we will be taking questions at the end. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through. I'm in contact with the support team, and if necessary, we can certainly pause as we go through, or we can go through to the end. We'll just see how we do, and depending on the sort of questions and how many, we can take a decision on that a little later. A quick introduction to me. I'm the course leader, one of the course leaders on this program. I do three things for a living. I'm immersed in digital. I run a digital consultancy business that helps organizations with their digital transformation challenges. I'm the director with a business called This Place. It's a consultancy business owned by a Japanese parent, but with offices in London, in Seattle, in Hong Kong. And we design digital products and digital e-commerce solutions. I work extensively outside the UK, you may have heard of this thing called Brexit, which has slowed things down quite a bit here, a lot of indecision. I've taken this as an opportunity to spend a lot of my life in the Middle East, in the Gulf states, further east in India and Pakistan, in Singapore, Malaysia and Indonesia, those countries which are pretty vibrant and where there's a lot of interesting innovation right now and a lot of appetite for digital learning. There are some of the clients I'd list there, so you can see financial services, American Express, Dubai Islamic Bank, HSBC, L'Oreal, M&S, PwC, Vodafone. So quite a broad range of financial services, telco, utility and retail are my main areas. I am a trainer with Google. I'm one of the lead facilitators on their C-level programs. And with EMERITUS, I'm fortunate to be a course leader on this and the digital strategies, digital marketing strategies program. I've also written 3 best practice books on digital with a focus on mobile. The most recent updated just in December. So a lot of my experience is based in being a consultant and a hands-on practitioner, being a trainer and facilitator, and also an author, which gives me exposure to a lot of smart people and the discipline of distilling this into words. I love to connect with the people I meet on these programs. Please feel free to connect with me on any of the channels at the bottom of the screen right there. The business Emeritus is not very old, but in its short life, it has established itself as a true pioneer and leader in executive education, set up by its 2 founders, one of whom went to Harvard, one went to INSEAD. The founders quickly saw an opportunity to build a learning program in partnership with some of the world's leading business schools. You can see the MIT, Columbia Business School, Tuck at Dartmouth. In each case, these are leading exec education and business school organizations. And the programs we have designed and are running are built with the various highest standards that the MIT, Columbia and Tuck instill in their face-to-face learning for those fortunate enough to be going on campus. Now, for the many thousands of people who run our programs, who attend our programs, for various reasons, it's not easy to get to the States or to get to Europe and train face-to-face. So we've developed this online learning methodology and format, which allows you to get the very best out of the exec education that you would get face-to-face, but in the convenience and at a much lower cost, of course, by doing it remotely using our platform. And you can see on this slide some of the big numbers. I'm not going to go through them in turn in terms of the credibility of these organizations and the number of businesses which alumni of these programs have gone on to found, and the huge collaboration that you would be rewarded with by joining in with the program. Our methodology combines a number of core ingredients. First of all, online video. It's clear that today's busy executive doesn't have time to spend a huge amount of their working life devoted to learning. More, it's important that we find a way of developing bite-sized learning experiences, and the online platform with video at the very heart provides an extremely effective way of you learning from experts in their various subjects, and I'll introduce some of these guys a bit later. So you get the human touch there and the human interface, but also the convenience of being able to do this on Wi-Fi or on fast Ethernet connection, so you get good quality pictures and a very vibrant learning experience. We love bringing in guest speakers. It's important in all our programs that we have a broad cohort of expert practitioners who share their experience with you directly. A live webinar, of course, allows you, wherever you're sitting or standing, whether you're alone or with others, to be engaged and learning by asking and having a highly interactive forum, which we're able to do here. Of course, we want to make sure if you're going to put your strategies, your digital strategies for business qualification on your LinkedIn profile, that you really need to have earned it. We're very rigorous in our academic processes and making sure that you do achieve a certain success grade once we evaluate assignments, which we will explain in a little bit more detail later. So this is really based on quality learning, and quality learning that is checked and proven, rather than simply turning up for a few weeks and then sticking some initials after your name, or putting the qualification on that would not otherwise have any value were it not rigorously assessed. And we do see the huge value in peer-to-peer learning and feedback. So we positively encourage and build in a cohort-based learning methodology where you learn, excuse me, where you learn from each other. So we have on this program 385 participants enrolling from 47 countries. I believe that's a record. I can check that with the support team. But you are truly part of an international group. And you can see just by looking at this, this chart here, the diverse parts of the world that you represent. So whether it is South Asia, we see the largest component coming from India here, South America, Brazil. We see also Mexico, the US, some European countries, Switzerland, Germany. We see a significant contribution from the Middle East and from Southeast Asia, with Singapore and Thailand and Indonesia represented. Further east still, we see Hong Kong on the list, and we see also Australia and Colombia, if we go slightly further out, and South Africa playing a significant role there. So a truly international group. Now, why is this important? This is why it's important, because when we do the group learning activities, we can genuinely claim that in our learning cohorts, we have people with experiences from all aspects of industry, but also from all areas geographically, which provides a very rich learning experience, and one which is informed by input from various different geographies. And guess what? If you're working for an international business, it's kind of useful to understand firsthand while you're learning this, how these different concepts land and how relevant they are in each of the countries. Of course, as we all know from international marketing, it's not so much what your brand can do in a market, but more it's what your brand can do for a market, and getting feedback from the market and building in that localization is really critical to getting traction, whatever you're doing. It's also great to see that the people on this program really do have some extensive industry experience. 58% of participants have got over 15 years of professional experience. Now, why is that relevant? That's relevant because anyone can go online and simply do a one-way learning program and learn the theory. But to be really important and to be really effective as a digital practitioner, you need to be realistic about the context of the workplace, understand what kind of barriers get in the way, and then factor that in to how you apply the learnings to your business. The value of sharing your experience with other like-minded professionals, also with extensive experience, is that you get a much more realistic learning and a much more valuable sharing of ideas, because everyone on this program has been in the workplace and therefore is able to understand the real issues when it comes to implementing some of these principles in the real world. It's great to see also that we've got a really diverse range of industries covered here. Again, I'm not going to read these out in turn, but you can see that there are some big numbers here representing some pretty significant industries, whether it's consulting or IT or banking. These are all areas that I personally am very engaged in at the moment, or the other areas spanning healthcare, moving down to education, retail, and even business services, advertising and IT products, that we've got a good range of experiences here. And of course, some of the challenges that a telco faces are going to be very similar to the challenges a banking and financial services client faces. And the real value is being able to understand the principles, understand the specific issues that relate to an industry. Take a look at the list: healthcare and financial services as two examples, highly regulated industries. So actually there's a lot that those two industries can share from their own common experience of dealing with regulatory organizations and complying with regulation, which could be valuable and not immediately apparent when you consider how much they have in common. So there's a lot of learnings that multiple industries can share, and what works brilliantly in one industry can be applied without too much difficulty and then adapted to another industry. So a good cross-fertilization opportunity here. David Rogers, here he is. This is our faculty, Professor David Rogers. I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with David Rogers. We worked on a program for a telco in Malaysia last year. David is a very colorful guy. He's extremely erudite, eloquent, very, very engaging to talk to and to learn from. He has a really five-star profile, recognized, not surprisingly, across a whole range of different aspects. He is a pioneer of a customer network concept and has written a number of books putting the customer at the heart of everything that an organization needs to do. And this is so fundamental, of course, in digital, where customers have access to more information than ever before. There's true transparency and the ability for any customer to find out the real deal about a business, not by going on the business's website or looking at its social channels per se, but actually talking to other customers and digging around. So understanding the customer and the customer network is a fundamental principle that sits at the very heart of effective digital, one that's been pioneered by David here. A very good speaker at industry events, also running workshops and conferences worldwide. David really does understand the value of technology in transforming businesses and brands, and indeed the broader strategy. And that's the whole core of this program. Digital strategy, of course, is a big topic for any consultant, and David is one of the very best. And you can see from the list of clients here that he's applied this principle and his consultancy skills across a whole range of industries there. And these industries, by the way, and these businesses, not just in the US, but indeed internationally. And he's a guy who, if you follow him, and I'm sure you will, you'll see that he's pretty well quoted across various media, online and face-to-face, in the US, across Europe, and indeed the rest of the world. So the books that we would suggest that you get familiar with are The Network is Your Customer and The Digital Transformation Playbook, Rethinking Your Business to Adapt and Thrive in the Digital Age. These are the two guides. Now, the question always comes up, do I have to buy the book? Do I have to pay for it? It's strongly suggested that you get familiar with these books, and buying a book is not a huge investment these days, nor is it difficult. So you'll find both these books on Amazon, and this will certainly help you with your learning because it forms the methodology and the structure of the program that you're going to be learning here. So, reasons that you should not be taking this course. And these are some myths and some misconceptions that I think we just need to get on the table straight away. And if you feel that this is your view for personally and for your business, then it may be a good idea that you proceed no further and log off and don't consider this course. My company is immune from digital disruption. I would challenge that vigorously. I don't think there's any business which is not some way impacted by digital. 80% of companies believe that digital transformation is a competitive opportunity, so says Capgemini. Digital transformation is just a fad. It won't last. That reminds me rather of the comment a certain retailer came up with. He thought the internet would be a passing shower and not last. Digital transformation market geared up to reach over $400 billion in revenue by 2021. This is big business, of course, and I think for anyone who is using digital products as a customer, you can see the huge seismic shifts that digital is having on the business world. We've already done digital transformation. Well, I don't think so. It's forever changing. 5% of organizations feel that they have mastered digital to a point of differentiation from their competitors. What that says to me is 95% of organizations haven't. So there is always room to do things better or to do things differently, or indeed to experiment with new things. And the digital technologies allow us to do that. You have no interest in advancing your career. Well, in that case, I'd be surprised if you're on this course. 66% of CEOs of top 2,000 global companies will have digital transformation at the center of their corporate strategy this year. And guess what? If you're working for a business and you're serious about progressing, it's a pretty good idea to be good at something and knowledgeable about something that the chief exec has at the center of their strategy. I've got another 4 series of Game of Thrones to watch. Well, okay, so good luck with that if you have the time to get on Netflix and watch them. I've said earlier, David, he may not be one of the Lannister characters in Games of Thrones, but he certainly is a very engaging presenter, and you'll certainly learn a lot by watching him in action. So how do we tackle this topic of digital strategy? Well, there are 5 main domains here, and the program is geared around each of these. First of all, as mentioned already, it's all about the customer. You got to understand your customer. As Seth Godin said famously, what businesses need to do is not find customers for their products, but find products for their customers. If you don't know your customer, how can you be developing products that they're going to like and want and buy again? You've got to be better than your competition. If your competition happens to be called Amazon these days, or Google, or Facebook, then you are really needing to wake up and do something about that. Now, the reality is that you could be a bank. In fact, I had a meeting with a bank just this morning. We were talking about this. The competition is not the traditional bank anymore. The competition is the social media network, is any payment technology which is now threatening and disrupting the banking industry. Take that same principle to any other industry. The competition with the advent of platform businesses and partnerships could be a very unexpected person or organization that you'd never really seen as competition before. Data, there's a lot written about data, about big data. Data, of course, should not be seen with tracking technology as the rear view mirror, which shows you where you've just come from and hopefully get yourself a pat on the back for going the right way. No, data and analytics should be the headlights that determine where you are going. Having a thorough understanding of data and how to extract value from that data is absolutely fundamental and a core part of our program here. We don't want to do what we did last year. We want to do things radically different. We want innovation. At Google, we call this moonshot projects. We want to look for a 10 times effect by innovating and coming up with a groundbreaking idea, use of technology, customer experience, whatever it is, not just to increase what we did by 5 or 10%. So the multiple is not percentage plus, it's times. 10 times, and you want to be innovating and building a culture of innovation that allows you to do just that. And of course, we want to extract value, because when you're doing digital, often a lot of the people signing off the checks, the CFO, the procurement guy, maybe they don't really understand this digital thing and they're looking for an ROI figure. Now, this is a problem because you can't measure what you've never done before. Creating an ROI figure is often in direct conflict with innovation and finding new ways of doing things that genuinely do please your customers and leave the competition standing. So we need to be clever about identifying value and the value of the proposition. And this may be something that is actually the most difficult thing to tackle, even though it seems the most easy. At the heart of it, we need to make sure that we are nurturing a generation of leaders, digital leaders. And without knowledge and skills, the digital leaders will struggle. It's not a case of giving digital to someone as a thing at the end of their busy day, where they have to kind of work around it and find time for it. But we need to nurture digital leaders and make sure we've got certain leadership skills that allow them to leverage the huge opportunities that digital presents. So how do we go about turning all of this stuff into a program that you're going to be working on here? Well, there are 13 modules, and just have a look at them while I drink my tea. This is all pretty logical. We start with a kickoff about the 5 domains, what I've just talked through. Module 2, we look at the customer networks and different ways of purchasing and decision making. We then look at different behaviors and understand how digital is fundamentally changing consumer behavior. We're not just buying products and using them and going and buying them again. We also leaving ratings, leaving reviews. We ourselves are becoming important influencers as customers. And that behavior is something we really need as marketers and as business people to tap into. We need to figure out how we can grow our businesses in an exponential way, not just by selling the same product to more people, but by building more value and bringing partners in and allowing for a way that those partners can sell their products to our customers and we can sell our products to their customers. And guess what? 1 + 1 = 3. We can create a platform network effect which allows us to provide more value in what we're doing for our customer by working in tandem and partnership rather than doing it on our own. We'll look at how that builds in platform 5 about co-opetition, not competition, not cooperation, but building some form of competition that's actually collaborative. We look at disintermediation and how platform businesses can completely re-engineer and redefine industries, and look at asymmetric competitors and some really interesting examples that we go into in detail here. Data is the next chunk. So we look at module 6 and 7, building data as a strategic asset, and then understanding how we can assess and capture the real value of big data using clever tools and templates which allow us to see data not just as a sort of record of what's going on, but more around the true value in understanding our customers, understanding technology and machine-to-machine interfaces and interactions, look at trends, look at differences in usage, look at unusual anomalies, and see stories through the data, which allow us to move very quickly and reactively in real time to what's going on around us. Innovation is the next section. So numbers 8 and 9 and 10, all around innovation. So we look at experimentation as a key theme and MVPs, minimum viable products, in number 8. We then look at the startup, the lean startup, and how to use that startup mentality to scale innovation. And then in module 10, look at how we can bring all of this into adapt your value proposition. This is the digital strategies for business coming together here. We then look at number 11 at disruption and disruption models. 12 at surviving disruption, the 6 incumbent responses to disruptor behavior. Of course, a disruptor can be unexpected in terms of how they look, but the way they act can be very profound. And you just need to think for a moment about the industries which have been most radically disrupted by digital. The taxi business. Look at what Uber and what Lyft have done to fundamentally transform the way that industry works, both for the passenger and for the driver. And then the last one, leadership, as I mentioned earlier, creating a value imperative framework to encourage and support leadership talent in your organization. So what we want to, so I just stop for a minute. We're halfway in. Can I just ask the support team, do we have any questions so far that I need to jump in and answer, or are we good to keep going? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I'm seeing one comment here from program support. So I will take that then that you are happy with what we're doing here, and I'll just keep going. So course objectives. By the end of this course, it's our intention that you would have learned some tools and techniques which allow you in your organization to be developing new products and services and business models for your digital customers. I would add to that also for your analog customers, all of whom in some way will be using digital and influenced by digital. How you can be leveraging your customers' participation, every interaction they're making, the data that is giving off and the signals they give you about what they want, about their intent and their future requirements based on what they're clicking on, what they're liking, what they're sharing, what they're downloading, what they're subscribing to, and so on and so forth. And knowledge for competitive advantage. The closer you are to your customer, the more likely you are to beat your competitors to get the business, the sorts of products and services that your customers are looking for on the right platforms, in the right place, at the right time. It's as simple as that. Digital gives out a huge amount of data, which you need to be capturing and building into your business. Also into your product development roadmaps. Understanding how data can be used for innovation. You know, we could all be innovating in 100 different ways, but unless we can figure out which of these innovation ideas we should be investing in, we're likely to be wasting our time and wasting a lot of money. So we need to be using data to test concepts and hypotheses before we go to market and invest in product development or new digital marketing techniques. We need to be able to apply the lessons of lean startups. For all of us, it's clear that there are some differences between the way big, stable organizations work, often referred to as super tankers going across the oceans. Very stable, certainly able to withstand the difficult trading conditions, whatever industry you're in, but take rather a long time to change direction. On the other hand, we're familiar with the speedboat. This is a cool thing to get in. It moves fast, it changes direction, and it can take opportunities very quickly without needing to change direction and have a whole load of process stuff get in the way. But the reality is that unless you've got a combination of the two, it's likely that you're going to struggle and find competitors doing a better job. I'm just straight back from Abu Dhabi, where I was last week, working with a big global news organization there. And we spend a lot of time looking at the things which they would like to do quickly in an agile way, but some of the things that are holding them back, you know, whether it's process-based, whether it's resource-based, whether it's budget-based. So we've got to be very clear about what gets in the way and how we can behave a bit more like speedboats, but within the constraints of the big organization we work for. Or if you are starting a business up from scratch, happy days. You don't have any of those obstacles in the way, but there are going to be some lessons about survival which startups can share with us. We need to evolve our value proposition to stay ahead of disruptive trends. It's a very clearly understood principle that in order to avoid being disrupted by others, a smart approach is to disrupt yourself. So find out how the disruptors are operating and bring that disruption into your own organization. But also, if you can see what the disruptors are doing and how they're doing it, you can maybe bring that into your own business in order to keep yourselves ahead of the competition, ahead of the trends, and to think like a disruptor. There's a very important point there. So how might this apply to your industry? Well, I'm speaking to well over somewhere between 50 and 70 people on this call. And I know we've got a whole lot more who are already signed up for this program. So you guys would be coming in on the back of this program. I don't know what you do. I don't know where you live or what industry you're in. I know from the earlier pie charts who is on this call. I don't know exactly individually what you're all doing, but I want you to ask yourselves a few questions here. How is this going to impact my customers? Bear in mind that poor customer experiences are very quickly shared. If a customer has a disjointed, incoherent customer experience, it's very easy for them to complain or to make a comment or share something negative about your industry. However, great experiences are also shared. So there's a big opportunity there, not just a negative. Looking at the competition, who are your traditional competitors? You probably know who they are. You've probably got a short list, and there may be businesses that very few people have heard of. But you should be thinking, as I mentioned earlier, that today's competitive landscape is very different. And think about who the new competitors are, who maybe you hadn't even realized are actually threatening your customer base and your revenue pipeline. Think about data, big data. How do you collect and analyze data? There are so many ways to capture data. It's often described that getting your hands on digital data is like having a glass of water from a fire hydrant at the side of the road. There's so much data there. The challenge is to know two things. First of all, how to collect it. What are the best collection techniques? And then once you've collected and consolidated and analyzed the data, what do you do with it? And the second big challenge is how do you get more value from that data? So we look at different aspects of assessing value of data and creating insights which allow you to change your business as usual and develop some different business opportunities. Innovation, rapid experimentation, and customer validation of new ideas is fundamental. Unless you check your ideas with your customers, unless you base the origin of your ideas on the needs of your customers, you're going to be doing this in a very conceptual, theoretical way. So we look at how we do that, how we really get the backlog of user needs and build them into our roadmap. And then develop some quite clever testing techniques. So we're constantly looking to experiment on 2 or 3 options or 4 options, what works best, and depending on what works best, that becomes the control for the next A/B test. And then finally, value. How do you create more value for your customers? Is your core value proposition changing in the digital world, or are you, frankly, missing out on some big opportunities, either to keep up with the competition or indeed to get so far ahead of the competition that you become difficult to disrupt and keep up and be challenged yourself? So we want you to start thinking, before you sign up for this course, about different ways of thinking about your competitors and your customers. They are not the people that you may think they are. If you've been stuck with some outdated segmentation model and demographic way of describing your customers, you need to think again. You need to think about their intent, their real, genuine needs and pain points, how to anticipate and meet them, exceed those expectations. Competition we've just talked about. New ways of understanding data and its real value. It's not just a bunch of reports that get stacked up every week, but it's trends, and it's sharing trends with other people and seeing stories in the data that give you key insights fast that allow you to innovate. Think about Zara and how its parent company is able to create products very quickly with very short supply chains and get products to market that pick up on fashion trends. This is driven extensively by data. In fact, Zara is more of a technology business than a clothing company. They just happen to be very, very good at understanding trends and quickly getting those into products in store and online. Think of new ways of managing and leading innovation. It's not just, oh, the innovation department does that. Everyone should be responsible for innovation and coming up with new ideas and sharing those ideas with other people in the organization and through partner networks. New ways of defining and understanding our value to the marketplace. Your position in the marketplace today should not be the same as it was last year or the year before. Digital requires reinvention using all of these different aspects of the model that we've described already. And you should be always looking to challenge and come up with a new version. When was the last time you looked at your mission statement, your value proposition? You should be going back to that every 6 months and challenging and seeing if you got it right and if there's something you knew you need to add to it. As George Bernard Shaw famously said, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. What this requires, therefore, is a new mindset, a way of thinking differently about problems and challenges and building that into your modus operandi, the way that you get stuff done. And it's not a case of just dusting down that old strategy document once every 12 months. It's keeping it under constant review and looking to fine tune and improve on a regular basis. So in terms of the logistics, we're moving into that now. We have a series of webinars like this one, but with other people. The hugely entertaining, charismatic, and very smart Chris Perks, a good friend of mine, actively involved as a guest presenter in week 2 and week 10, Business Model Innovation and Jobs to be Done, that's the solution-driven framework for innovation. We have Richard Moorcroft, who takes up weeks 4 and 6, demystifying digital transformation and then mobilizing your digital transformation. Demetrius comes in week 8, operationalizing digital transformation, and then the prof, our faculty, David Rogers, is available and will be involved in delivering a Q&A, where we have a great opportunity to have an open dialogue between the participants, the students, and the faculty. We typically do our webinars at 1 p.m. UTC. So that is, that's basically Greenwich Mean Time in old money, which is 5 hours ahead of Eastern Time in the States, 3 hours behind the Middle East, whether you're in UAE or that part of the world, Saudi, or further afield, Singapore, I think is 8 hours ahead. India is 5.5 hours ahead. So just go onto the world clock and figure that out. So it's deliberately in the middle of the day, so most people can attend. We record these. If you can't attend live, they're recorded and you can listen on catch up. So the assessment process, as I mentioned earlier, this is really important because we want to make sure that you are getting a well-earned qualification rather than just getting a badge for turning up. So you should be asking in the assessment process, what are my personal objectives for the class? What do I need to do to achieve these objectives? And the grading process that we follow has a clearly defined rubric, which allows us to very transparently assess you based on a number of factors. And the factors are clearly defined for each of the assignments. We have individual assignments, we have group assignments, we have peer evaluation, we have participation discussions. So these are the 4 components of the things that we are grading. And of a total number of points, 1,500, if you get 750, 50%, you will be deemed to have done enough to pass. Of course, we don't want you just to pass, we want you to excel, we want you to get a distinction. The courses I'm running and the students who come on the programs, I can tell very quickly in week 1 and week 2 which ones are really putting their back into it, which ones are going to do well, contribute a lot, course, the more you put in, the more you get out. And so we do actively encourage people to really put their back into it and work hard. On the group assignments and selected individual assignments, we ask you to send these back in a timely manner. And we will then, if they're in time for the deadline, 5 working days later, we will have graded these assignments, and then we share the assignment grades with feedback to you, so you can see where you did really well, where your answer was perhaps a little bit short, lacking, and recommendations about how to do better next time. We deliver our learning using Canvas. This is our e-learning platform. You can see a picture of David Rogers there in the middle, a screenshot of a video that he's doing just to set up and explain in week 0 the program. And the dashboard looks like that. So you can see on the left-hand side, you've got the home button, you've got the modules, the people on the program, grades, discussions, and all of that good information is held in an easy to view and easy to navigate format. You also have your own personal login, you've got your own profile, you've got a calendar, you've got an inbox. There's a whole lot of stuff there for you. And there's a whole lot of stuff also for the course leaders. When we go in there to see which assignments have been submitted, we then go in there and grade them using the speed grading tool. We also set up discussions, and we've got our own to-do lists, as you will too. I'm going to just ask, just for clarity, the support team to talk about the app functionality. I know the app has been subject to some refinement, and I don't have the very latest on that. So perhaps at the end, we could ask the support team to clarify on the app. I know there is an app there in both the iTunes and the Google Play Store, which allows you to access that, which of course provides easy and regularly updatable content there for you. At the end of it, this is what you'll walk away from, a certificate signed by Emeritus and by the business school in question, in this case, Columbia. And this is something that you should get framed. You should put above your desk. You should take a photo of it and stick it on your LinkedIn profile. This is a worthy recognition of your achievements in completing the program. And finally, before I close and take some questions, on the logistics, the fee, so the cost to participate in this program is $1,500 US. Either you can pay in full, or we offer 2 more flexible payment programs, one with 2 installments, and the second with 3 installments that allows you to spread the cost across a number of weeks, which makes it easier, particularly if you are self-funding. I'm just going to end before we take questions with a little question from the very well-known Malcolm Forbes. One who never asks either knows everything or nothing. And I think therein lies an important message, that we really encourage learners who are naturally curious. They like asking questions. How does this work? Why did that work? Why did that happen? Why didn't that happen? A curious mind is a sign of an intelligent person and someone who wants to progress in their life and in their career. So it's all about asking questions. It's never been more important in this age where so much is changing so fast, with the advances in technology, changes in competition, and of course, some very fundamental shifts in the way our consumers behave and the way they make decisions. So on that very subject then about questions, let me just ask if we've got any questions that you guys may have. Hopefully I've stimulated a few there, and then we can take these questions one by one. So I'm looking in the chat now, and I'll just pick off the first few here I'm seeing. Will we see any case studies or scenarios of digital transformation in a B2B company? Rajat, that's a very good question. And the answer is most certainly yes. While B2C may be seen as perhaps more rapid in approaching and adapting their business model for digital. B2B is, of course, where there's a more significant upside by doing this well, and also I think more opportunity, because there are fewer B2B businesses that have really fundamentally shifted their strategy to take account of digital, and therefore you've got a bigger opportunity there to get ahead. There are, of course, a lot of differences in terms of the amount of time it takes to change strategy, decision makers involved in changing your business processes, and the amounts of budget are obviously going to be considerably higher in many cases. But yeah, we do, to answer your question, look at B2C and B2B. Daniel, I'd love to hear a bit about your experience or view, feel of the digital disruption in real estate development. I readdressed it in Q&A. I have to say, Daniel, I'm no real estate expert. I know people who work in the real estate business, but I think just to give you my take on it, just consider for a minute you are considering either buying or leasing a property. In the old days, you'd probably go on a website, you would maybe have a look at the marketing brochure, go to the marketing showroom, and make a decision based on what you see. These days, you don't need to expect the company with the real estate property as the only source of information. You are highly likely to be looking across a whole range of other touch points. It's estimated on average we look at over 120 different sources of information before making decisions. And the real trick is to have those channels, whether they're social media channels, commerce channels, industry, property channels, all working together and telling a consistent story and a more impartial one. Because guess what? It's the view of the customer, which is considerably more valuable and authentic than the view of the real estate company selling their property. The same logic goes whether you're interested in the retail sector, in commercial property, in municipal property, looking for leases and looking for tenants, or indeed for residential. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a feel. Always think about it from the customer's point of view. How many webinars are there in total? Shabir, I go back to the earlier slide. I believe there was 7 on there, but 2 from Chris. There was one from Demetrius. I think there was 7 on the list. Just go back to the earlier slide. Wade, how are the teammates for the assignments chosen? Wade, great question. There is a bit of self-selection involved, but the support team will assist in this process. Typically, this is done either using time zones, so people in your time zone would be the obvious teammates, so you're wanting to align on when you're doing your studies and when you're doing the assignments and discussing the planning and delivery. And secondly, on industry. So I would say those are the 2 axes for selecting your team partners. Daniel, again, how much time can you actually dedicate to our personal work and communication, given that there may be around 400 attending in the 2-month course? How much time can you actually dedicate to our personal work and communication? Well, the team leader's role is to coordinate a subset of the people on the program. Typically, the most recent one I've delivered, I had in my cohort, in the team I was looking after, 100, I think it was 100 people. And I was spending, a significant amount of time running my webinars, and my assignment sessions, grading the assignments. So you can, I would say you will get a good amount of time from your course leaders in delivering the material, but also in coordinating and grading the assignments. And the more you want to get out of the program, the more active you are in participating in different aspects of the program, the more you can learn from your course leader. But I would say also, don't just look to the course leader as the source of information. We have guest presenters and subject matter experts, as mentioned earlier, and you have each other. And the real value is to learn from one another, as well as from the course leaders, the faculty, and the guest speakers and subject matter experts. Shabir, with your experience, how do you see digital transformation in the auto sector? Well, I think this is a great question. I was running a workshop for Toyota recently, and if you consider the role of technology and digital in the Toyota business, it's absolutely all-encompassing. We're looking at the definition of a car. What is a car? A car is not just a vehicle from getting from A to B. The car is really a technology hub these days. It's a place where people are able to be fully engaged in the driving experience, but also entertainment from all sorts of other content areas and technologies which in a hands-free way allow them to use voice activation to get a whole load of other services which are valuable for the customer in those highly cherished times where they are fully connected and fully engaged in all forms of content. Of course, in a responsible way, and I mentioned hands-free yet again, this can be done in a very secure way. But I think for the car company itself, or the truck company, or the other form of transportation, it's really critical that we use technology as an early warning system to detect when the brake pads need replacing, when there's a problem with the engine, where there's some form of aspect of the car that needs attention. Using IoT technology and early recognition of symptoms, you can get that car off the road and fixed before the problem actually matures. This is very smart because it allows you to keep a happy customer before the problem goes wrong, before the problem emerges and the customer then starts complaining about your brand and never comes back again. It also gives you insights about the durability of different aspects of the car. So it's very important from an information gathering point of view. That's where the data comes in. Also very important from the customer point of view for customer satisfaction. And by the way, a great platform business opportunity to tie in with other partners wanting to tap into this ecosystem. Will you offer this course again in the next months? Yes, this course runs approximately every 2 months. So the deadline for enrollment, I think we showed on the earlier slide. If I didn't, then I should have done. Let me just quickly go back to that. I think perhaps the support guys, you could confirm the timing. I believe there's a little bit more time to apply. So perhaps you could reply to Giovanna with an answer to that question. But yes, it does run on a regular basis if you miss the deadline for this one. Do we get the course materials? Says Ahiji, yes, you do get the course materials digitally. You can download materials, and you can also, of course, download the handbook also. Shabir, how does this course help for an IT director? I think it's fundamental that any IT director, if they're in charge of making decisions about technology and technology investment, they need to understand what is the strategic value of the technology they're investing in. And that could take various aspects. It could be, for example, technology in understanding customer behavior. How are you, for example, tracking web behavior? Are you listening to social media? And what does that tell you? It could be technology around human resources. So are you tracking your staff, where they're going, what they're doing, how long they're working, what they're looking at, what they're not looking at, where they're going? So there's definitely some performance related issues, and using clever machine learning and AI-based ways of tracking and anticipating their behavior. And then in terms of the product and the supply chain, there's huge amounts. You can be using IT for in order to streamline processes, reduce cost? And there's so much more as well, Shabir. So the answer is most certainly yes. An answer from the team here. The next cohort date is scheduled for 14 October, if you can't join this one. So I'm looking at my watch and it's 4 o'clock. And I therefore believe that we've had our 1 hour for this webinar. I also have a taxi outside that needs to take me to the airport for my next trip. So I am going to thank you all very much for joining this webinar. I hope you found this useful. Please feel free to ask any more questions of the support team. And we very much look forward to seeing you on this program, and the very best of luck with your learnings, and best of luck once you've done your learnings to keep learning, keep asking questions, being curious, improving your career and the fortunes of your business with a smart digital strategy. So with that, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.